The next morning In came to practice. The training took place on a large parade ground, where at that time the soldiers practiced their movements. While the knight stubbornly practiced the movement with the sword, In did push-ups separately from everyone else. She didn't do very well. After several push-ups, she collapsed to the ground from fatigue and was clearly unhappy with what she had agreed to. Thoughts swirled in her head. She did not understand why she was doing all these activities when she had a lot of housework. Sir Douglas told her not to distract the others and to study on her own aside. In would be happier if they just kicked her out of this stupid practice. She, in fact, could not even become a knight. While In was doing push-ups, Joel approached her. And Danny and called her. Smiling sweetly, Danny asked how much time she had left before the end of the exercise. In didn't really appreciate this joke and demanded that he stop talking to her while she was doing the exercise. While In kept doing push-ups, Joel and Danny discussed it, laughing at the same time. They considered teaching her swordsmanship. If, of course, she wants it. Danny liked this idea. As the boys continued to tease her, she stood up and yelled at them to stop talking and go to work. In started a new exercise, promising to remember Joel his act. She went on and on doing various exercises. The coach, looking from the outside, appreciated such resilience. After exercises on the press, In went to cross-country with the rest of the knights. Soon she finishes the exercise. In stopped, wiping sweat from her forehead. The trainer, along with Joel and Danny, watched her and decided that she was ready for basic training. Sir Douglas handed her a wooden long stick, telling her that it was a gift before they move on to the next level. He congratulated In and she thanked him in turn. In thoughts, In did not want to learn swordsmanship at all. She had never even trained physically and it was just not interesting for her. While In was looking at her new gift, Danny said she was already in trouble. She realized that it was not just a stick, but a wooden sword and touched the blade. Suddenly, the coach hit her on the head with his fist. After that, he stood and looked at her with a very stern look. In didn't understand why he hit her. Danny stood up for In, saying that it was only the first day of training and it was just a mistake out of ignorance. The coach already understood this, and that is why he hit her only once. Douglas decided that Danny was very worried about In, since he was protecting her, and a strange smirk appeared on his face. He decided to give Danny a special assignment. Danny himself was at a loss. From that moment on, he had to teach the girl how to use the sword. Danny was a little shocked In hope that he would refuse such an offer. But her hopes were in vain. Since Danny was a responsible young man and a good warrior, of course he agreed to Sir Douglas' proposal. Joel liked the idea too. He was just about to ask Danny to teach In when the prep was over. The trainer didn't have enough free time to train her on his own, so he gave Danny some advice on how to train. He advised to just start with the basics. Joel wished good luck in training and together with the coach they left. In wasn't happy about the situation, because while working with a coach, she had the opportunity to cheat. She looked at Danny. Realizing that he will not be able to hack, remaining one-on-one with him. In had no intention of becoming a knight at all, but as soon as the winter was over, she intended to travel with the money she earned. Danny asked if she didn't like having him as her teacher and gave her a friendly hug. But In simply hated to do it. However, she did not tell him about it. She said she was worried that the coach would blame Danny if she didn't succeed. Danny was a little surprised that she was worried about him. He and In were about the same age, and he suggested calling him by his first name, as if they were brothers, because he did not like being called with er. Everyone thought she was a man, and now you still have to consider Danny a brother. I would really like to explain everything to him. But all the maids already treated her like a little brother, so she decided that it wouldn't affect anything. Danny, smiling, asked to just be called by his first name. He cheered up Hey-in, saying that everything is fine, but she had a panic in her thoughts. Hey-in smiled sweetly and agreed to his proposal. Attention was diverted by noise in the side. Who called out Angela's name? They both looked in that direction. A crowd of people gathered at the entrance to the estate. Looks like someone important has arrived. A girl in a long orange dress ran towards her mother. Mom stood near the fountain and joyfully met her daughter. They hugged and told each other how much they missed each other. Hey-in has never met her, and Danny explains to her that Angela is Joel's little sister. She went to boarding school. Looks like Angela returned home for the winter holidays. Hey-in watched all this with interest and thought about how wonderful it is to see her mother after a long separation. This moment made her think of her mother. She told Danny that she would go and change and come back. Hey-in changed into her work clothes and approached Mr. Harold. She assumed that due to Angela's arrival everyone was busy and offered her help, but the Herald refused. He told her to just help Joel. Hey-in offered her help to get to know Joel's sister better. The Herald asked her to report if she noticed anything strange. It's been a couple of days. As the new year approached, Hey-in had more work to do. Oh-na walked down the corridor, sorting through the mail. Suddenly, she came across a letter from Angela's school. She managed to read that it was a report card, when suddenly, her mother Angela appeared behind her and asked what was in her hand. Hey-in handed the letter to Mrs., explaining that it was from Miss Angela's school. Mom looked over the report card and saw that most of the grades were just awful. She crumpled this report card. Full of rage, she began to call her daughter. The heroine was frightened. I did not know what to do. Angela's mother ran to look for her. Immediately, excitedly ran up to Hey-in Harold. He had to find out what happened. Hey-in explained that Madam had just read a letter from Angela from school and was very angry. Harold understood what was happening. They had to find Madam. Together they set off in search. Suddenly, Hey-in heard the voice of Angela. As she got closer, Hey-in peeked out the door and saw Angela arguing with her mother. The mother promised that Angela would be able to go to her friend, but after seeing her grades, she changed her mind. Angela was very unhappy with this. She was supposed to leave for a friend the next morning and in every possible way tried to put pressure on Pity for her mother. Harold interrupted their conversation and knocked on the door. He wondered what happened. Mother Angela sighed heavily, but was glad to have Harold present. Madam ordered to find a tutor Angela. Someone was supposed to teach her mathematics and history, and the sooner the better. Angela stated that something was wrong with the history score. She tried to explain that she had a bit of an argument with the teacher, but Madam was adamant, leaving her under house arrest for a whole month. She also forbade her to go shopping, and let her not even dream of going to her friend tomorrow. Angela began to sob and beg her mother to let her go, promising that she would study when she returned. The mother still did not change her mind. She had to stay at home until the tutor came. Hey-in, standing outside the door, smiled maliciously. After all, the nobles also had to get good grades. So what? She is not the only one to suffer. She didn't know what to do. Should she have left Angela alone in this state? Harold urged Hey-in on to quickly calm Angela down. This proved unsuccessful. She returned back to the Herald. He explained to Hey-in that Miss Angela flunked the subject. Hey-in thought that Madam was just worried about grades. She did not know that in this world, too, they bring down students. At the end of each semester, students take tests on the past material. There are minimum requirements for each subject. If you can't do it, you'll fail. Madam never got angry for bad grades, but she didn't tolerate failure. She thought that no matter how hard you study, the main thing is not to be negligent about learning. That's why the herald respected her so much. Angela well and was sure she wouldn't waste her time doing something she didn't like. She won't even look at the item she doesn't like. Hey, In suggested one option. Why not hire someone she likes? After all, the appearance of a teacher can sometimes motivate. Harold approved this idea and went to ask Madam. Perhaps Angela had her own reasons for such behavior, but hey, in hope that she would find a good tutor and pass the test. A week has passed. Hey, In is walking down the hall and spots Angela. Hey, In was wondering if she would like the new teacher as Angela worked hard enough. She hoped Angela wouldn't fail the test this time. Suddenly Hey, In called the maid. Hey, In was watching Angela and the maid noticed it. She doesn't seem to think about it. Together they began to discuss Angela. They felt sorry for her. The girl was all alone in this mansion. Her brother was busy all the time, and it was impossible to play with the maids. Besides, Madam forbade inviting friends. Angela was so upset that she didn't even leave the room, but she seemed to feel better. The maid remembered that she had to go back to the kitchen. As she left, she told Hey, In not to worry. After all, she will not tell anyone that she likes Miss Angela. Mentally, Hey, In was furious that it wasn't like that. The next morning, our heroine went to another workout. They were already pretty fed up, she just wanted to lie in her bed. Hey, In liked to spend her free time the way she wanted to. She went to start another exercise, when suddenly she noticed someone. It was Miss Angela. But what was she doing there? Maybe she liked one of the knights. Hey, In took a closer look and realized that Angela looked a little sad. Maybe she was just jealous that others were having fun, but she wasn't. Angela looked like she needed a friend. Hey, In tried to figure out how to help her. She began to remember how she herself had fun at school and went through the options. Hey, In wanted to teach Angela one of the games and try to build a relationship with her. After all, if she was going to stay in this world, then meeting and interacting with other people would be clearly more useful than her old man, who calls himself the King of Spirits. She went to Angela, asking what she was doing there. Angela replied that she was just walking. Hey, In decided to somehow suck up to her. She wants to tell Angela a secret, asking if Angela can keep it. Her mood immediately lifted. Of course, Angela promised to keep it a secret. Her eyes lit up with interest. What was the secret? It was something that the heroine couldn't even tell Joel. Angela puffed up her ears, pleased and prepared to listen. And Hey, In told her that, in fact, she was not from here. Angela was a little disappointed by such a secret. But that was not all. Hey, In tells her that she is an elf by birth. Angela almost screamed in surprise, but Hey, In asked her to be quiet. Angela took a closer look at Hey, In and realized that her unusual hair and eyes indicated this. She had never met elves before, but she knew that Hey, In was not a pure-blooded elf. She had heard that there were quite a lot of half-breeds in the neighboring country, but they were rarely seen. Hey, In explained that she didn't live with people until recently. She was in such a deep place that no one could ever get into. Angela assumed that Hey, In lived in the Pensa Mountains with the elves, but the explanation only made things more complicated. It was such a remote place that she hadn't seen a single elf in all that time. But one day she heard about beings called humans who created societies and lived together. Then Hey, In realized that the world she lives in is too small for her. And she left her home. Angela was just full of joy from hearing the story. Hey, In dreamed of seeing the world. For Angela it was just an amazing story. But Hey, In didn't know anything about the human world. And I didn't know that people kidnap and sell others into slavery. But Angela interrupted her and said that the slave trade was against the law. Layson do this, and her country is the best. Hey, In decided to play along with her. Now she knows where she was caught and almost sold into slavery. Hey, In was brought to auction in a country called Bellini, but luckily, Sir Joel and his knights rescued her. Angela heard that her brother recently caught the slavers, but she didn't know that Hey, In was there too. How nice it was to lie to an innocent girl. Everything was exactly like that. Sir Joel was kind enough to take her away. She felt really good here, but she still didn't know much about this country. And then it dawned on Angela. Did Hey, In talk to her about this to ask for a favor? A very smart girl. After training Hey, In came to Angela. Angela asked about her workouts. Hey, In replied that she couldn't get used to exercising every day. Looks like Angela was playing with herself. Hey, In was glad that she liked one of the games she taught her. Hey, In promised to teach her another game when they were done. Angela happily agreed. Angela couldn't wait to go back to school. She wanted to teach her classmates how to play the games Hey, In showed her. Before class began, Angela asked Hey, In to wait as they had a special guest today. Is this a new student? Surprised Hey, In. A special teacher, replied Angela. Mom allowed her to bring friends when she found out that Angela was studying hard. Until a friend came, Angela offered to play. After a while there was a knock on the door. A girl with purple eyes, long blonde hair, books and scrolls in her hands entered the room. Her name was Martia. She and Angela hugged, obviously missing each other. Hey, In helped her take off her coat and met Martia along the way. Martia knew that Hey, In was helping Angela with her history studies. She gave Hey, In a children's history book and said it would be very useful to her. Hey, In accepted this book, thanking her. It was a collection of Mother's fairy tales on history, a book for kids. But who cares, because Hey, In really liked this book. Angela asked what Martia I had brought with me. It was a map of the world. Martia unfolded it on the table and they all began to look at it together. Quietly, Hey, In asked Angela if she could accept the book as a gift if they had just met. Angela said that she can safely accept the gift, because she promised that Hey, In will teach her fun games. This must have been Marcia's way of expressing her gratitude. On the map Angela showed Hey, In mountains Pensa. Apparently, she wanted to show her where Hey, In came from. Together they stared at the map in amazement. Looking where the Kerguelen Sea is, and where Hey, In, she realized that she had climbed very far. The continent they were on was called Graham. Martia called out to the heroine, asking if she knows why the continent is called that. But how was she to know? Martia was surprised that Angela didn't tell her this fascinating story. Why not tell? Angela thought. She was sure that Hey, In would like this story. The continent was named after the man. It was the first and only man in history to unite the continent. Hey, In wondered what he looked like. Previously, there were dozens of countries on this earth. Due to wars, some of them disappeared or merged, while others formed. For Hey, In it was very familiar. Apparently people everywhere lived the same way. Martia continued her story. One day, the young king of a small country conquered an entire continent. He united it and was known as a great king and a great swordsman. He is the great Emperor Graham. Martia imagined him riding a white horse through all the battlefields, majestically and courageously. The light breeze barely touched his golden hair, the color of a fiery sunset. Hey, In pretended to be great, when in fact she was bored. It was the same story she studied at home in her past world, only it had different participants. Stories about other races would be much more interesting. But Angela interrupted her from her thoughts, saying that this was not all. She wanted to talk about a certain makepeace. He must have been a big shot. Hey, in thought as the girls adored these heroes in a cute way. Pointing to the city on the map, called Makepeace, the heroine decided that the people of this city helped the emperor. Angela explained that Makepeace is the name of a great magician. And the capital of the state was named after him. He must have done a lot for the capital once it was named after him, In mused. Makepeace was the emperor's right hand and one of the greatest magicians in history. Historical books said he was extraordinarily handsome. With long, waist-length, sacred silver hair and a white robe. He looked like a beautiful angel. Just imagine. Angela spoke. Incredibly beautiful mage. And a brave knight with copper hair. About which, after many centuries, the bards sang songs. And our heroine admired this story. So it was a love story between an emperor and a magician? In asked. For girls, it seemed very romantic. In was wondering what happened. But little was known about this. People said they had encountered forbidden love. And then Angela said that they were both men. But did it matter when it comes to love? In was not a little surprised. She thought Makepeace was a woman. Their love was unacceptable to society, so they could not express feelings openly, said Angela. They hid their feelings from everyone, Martia continued. While the girls were acting out this scene, In was a little embarrassed. She realized that girls her age were interested in the same things as her, although they were from different worlds. In suggested that the story ended after they started living together happily ever after. But this was not so. After the unification of the continent, they quarreled. Moving away from each other, they began to live separately. But despite the fact that they parted, their love was also strong. They never understood or forgave each other until the end of their days. Martia interrupted this story and suggested that we return to the history lesson. According to history, the emperor believed that the best race to rule was the human race. There were others identified as demi-humans or monsters. Elves, gnomes, mermaids and beast-men. There were also dragons, but they were an exception. Nobody could resist them. In suggested that this could be the cause of the conflict and she guessed right. Makepeace did not agree with the emperor. The reason was that God created not only people and the opportunity to rule the country should be equally given to all races. He believed that people should not encroach on someone else's land and someone else's power. Because of these words, some began to think that Makepeace could be an elf or a dragon that took the form of a man. Was it possible? Thought In. Angela continued the story. She said that on top of that, he was close to becoming a rank 9 mage. Which is a rarity for his age. In thought, her mother was a rank 7. How cool was the 9th one? The girls said that the highest rank possible for a person is the 7th. Those who reached it received the title of a great magician. Only dragons could reach the 9th rank. Now she understood why people began to think that he was a dragon. He was the first great magician to reach the 9th rank. In recalled that the Spirit King was also strong. She wondered who would win if her father and the dragon fought. She imagined this picture in her head. Angela turned to In. She asked if there was something that could help fulfill her cherished desire. What would she wish for? In could wish for anything. She was wondering if there is such a thing. But the girls asked not to change the subject and just answer them. Angela insistently asked for an answer, whatever she wished. In thought for a moment. And she began to say what she would like. She wanted to return home honorably. Angela imagined her in a beautiful suit, surrounded by people meeting her and asking if she would come home one day. In replied that she would return home when the time was right and asked, by the way, what this thing looks like. Angela said it was a gem called God's blessing, but no one knew what it looked like. Martia heard that at the time when he was with the emperor, he shone like gold. God's blessing is famous for the fact that it changes color and shape depending on the owner. In wondered what he would look like if she had one. She liked the shape of the blue ruby. On this cheerful note, Angela and her friend ended their story. Now it's In's turn to train them. Since Martia was filming for the first time, she cooked up something new. It was a game called Cat's Cradle. The next morning again began with training. In really wanted to leave, she didn't want to become a swordsman at all. Also, the weather was too good for a stupid workout. But Danny insisted that she focus, her sword shaking. He asked if she was okay. In replied that she was just a little tired. Danny assumed that she missed Miss Angela. Apparently In fell in love with her. Yes, absolutely everyone perceived her as a man. In got angry and started brandishing her wooden sword, demanding that Danny not tease her. As he ran away, he told In not to worry because Angela would be coming home for the summer holidays. But she didn't care at all. After training, she went to start her usual duties. In was squeezed like a lemon and couldn't believe that Danny had been making fun of non-stop days all this time. Suddenly, a man in black clothes appeared in front of her and called out to her. He must have been a guest since the guards let him in, but he looked suspicious. This strange man said that he had never seen In before and asked him his name. She gave her name. The stranger suggested that she was a commoner since she did not have a last name and asked how old she was. She politely replied that she turned 18 this year, but in her mind she was very angry. Who was he to even ask her so many questions? The man began to examine her, asking if she was a summoner. In began to explain that summoners are those who are bound by a contract with spirits. But she never entered into contracts and did not even know how to do it. But the stranger just passed by, not even paying attention to her words. In chased after him, but by then he had entered the mansion. The herald met him and greeted him, calling him Mr. Stewart. This Mr. was pleased meeting. In thought he was a very big shot since Mr. Herald met him. Pointing to In, the stranger asked who the boy was. The butler wondered in confusion what In had done wrong. The man replied that everything was fine. He just wanted this kid to work for him. Everyone was surprised. The herald explained that the servant had already been presented to Sir Joel and he was unable to dispute this. Meanwhile, In didn't understand what was going on at all. He couldn't have known who she really was. Seeing Joel, the man decided to ask him about it himself. Meanwhile, Joel went out to greet this man. Mr. Stewart praised him for a job well done last year, as stories of his exploits even reached his city. They shook hands and the man congratulated him. He decided to ask Joel for one favor. Stewart asked me to give him this kid. Joel offered to help him find a suitable servant if needed. The man was a little surprised that the master had his own servant. He must have really liked this guy. He thanked the master for the offer, but explained that he was only interested in this boy. In has been in turmoil all this time. Why don't they ask her opinion? Stewart asked me to understand him correctly. He wanted to teach In magic himself. Joel asked with interest if he would like to take him on as an apprentice. This was a bit of a surprise for In. She realized that Stewart was a magician, not a bum. The herald remarked with surprise that the Mr. had never taken an apprentice before. Impressed, Stewart explained that he sensed a large amount of mana in him. To him, In was an uncut nugget and if properly trained, he would be more useful than a servant. Thoughtfully Joel lowered his gaze and said the following. In that case, he should have been the one asking Stewart for a favor. In was confused, she could hardly cope with the sword, and now also learn magic. It was already too much for her. The herald demanded that introduce herself in a proper way, because from that moment on, Mr. Stewart was her teacher. Hey, herself just stood and trembled as she looked at him. She said that she was very pleased to meet him and bowed, although in her thoughts she almost sobbed. A little later, started her usual duties. She was carrying tea somewhere on a cart, still complaining about her morning workouts. Danny demanded too much from her and did not give her concessions. He even made the training more difficult, simply because she was trained in magic. But didn't even want to learn magic. She walked into her new teacher's office and said good morning. Stewart asked if she had read everything. Apparently, he gave her some books on magic. She answered yes. Has heard enough from this old man about the importance of mana. He praised her a little and told her to read more while he was gone. Really didn't want to, she thought she would die of old age while she was reading. Has already perfected the whole theory. She wondered if she could choose the book herself. The teacher seemed to understand what kind of book she needed. He was just about to give her a book called Mastering the Art of Summoning. This book had everything, including the basics and how to make a contract with the spirit, and therefore, it was supposed to be useful for the student. Was very happy to see this book, her eyes sparkled with joy. She began to flip through the pages, promising that she would definitely read it in the absence of a teacher. But Stewart wanted to tell her one more thing. He warned her not to be a fool and not make a contract with a spirit. Some summoners have died in an attempt to make a spirit summon. She promised not to. The teacher left, saying that he would not return until the evening and that she could leave when she was done. Held it. And I started reading the book. Saying that nothing will happen to her. She wondered who she would call first. During the next class of magic, went outside with the teacher. She was excited about her first magic lesson, but didn't understand why they had to do everything outside. The teacher explained that if someone with as much mana as hers didn't learn to control it or made a mistake, it would be a disaster. They will be grateful if only the mansion burns down. Couldn't believe it. All she has tried to do so far has been water figures. The master decided to show her the first lesson. Fiery flames began to appear around his palm. And a fireball formed over his palm. Was surprised he didn't even use a spell. Stewart explained that the basis of magic is not casting spells, but mana control. Was confident that she could do it and tried to follow his instructions. When she tried, she only got a water clot. It was easy for her to use her spiritual energy, but she did not understand the essence of mana and did not understand why she could not summon fire. The teacher told her to relax and focus on collecting her mana. She decided to think about the energy of that lower fire spirit named Casa, with the help of which she cooked her own food and she began to succeed. But the power of her call was so great that the fire began to grow rapidly to a huge scale. The master tried to stop her. But there was an explosion. Stood at a loss, they were both burned and the master, covering his face with his hand, decided that there was one more thing that was worth teaching her. It had been a long time since she started learning fire magic. Taking some book with her, she made her way to the training ground at night. The fire magic was too strong for her, didn't even know how many explosions there were all the time. That's all because she wasn't used to using mana, but she was sure everything would go smoothly with the summoning. In her hands was the same book about summoning spirits that Stewart had given her. Opening the book, read that, as a rule, one must use a magic circle in order to summon a lower spirit to make a contract. But she heard that the magic circle was not needed if she had good spirit compatibility and closed the book. Considered it humiliating to rely on a magic circle to summon spirits when she could see and speak to them anyway, and threw the book away. Focused and began to summon the mistress of the wind. She commanded her to answer her call. And suddenly, a spirit appeared in front of her in green clothes with green hair and long, like an elf's ears. Although the spirits had no gender, but judging by the body, the spirit looked like a girl. The spirit asked who called her. But In stood surprised, realizing that it was not in vain that she did not try to do this in the room. In asked who she was, the spirit was not like Sylph. This upset the spirit. How could she confuse her with Sylph after such a passionate call? She was the highest spirit of all winds, her name was Celestine. In was pleased with herself as she had just summoned a higher spirit. While In was praising herself, the spirit rushed around her, offering to sign a contract already. For some reason the spirit was more excited than In. And In agreed. The spirit kissed her on the forehead, and from that moment their contract was concluded. This was her very first contract with a top-ranked spirit. It was amazing for her, In couldn't be happier. It was difficult for her to train as a swordsman and magician, she never even wanted to, but it was amazing. And she proceeded to call the next spirit. In called upon the ruler of the earth to answer her call. Another spirit appeared from the ground in front of her. He also asked if she had called him. The spirit was a dark-haired brunette with yellow eyes and ears like an elf. The spirit of the wind looked at him in surprise, pronouncing his name, Noinen. In looked at him with the same astonished look. She had never seen an earth spirit before. The spirit asked if she wanted to make a contract with him. But In was a little shy about another kiss on the forehead. The spirit approached her. It was a kiss not on the forehead, but on the lips. She was full of amazement and blushed all over. The contract was concluded, it was already the second contract. The wind spirit was very worried about whether she would contract more. While Celestine was wondering who would be next, In was embarrassed and realized that this was her first kiss. Being frustrated, In began to rock on the ground, thinking that this was not how she imagined her first kiss. Although the spirit was tall and beautiful, it was a spirit. So it didn't count, In thought. At this time, the spirit stood and looked at her, not understanding what was happening. The spirit of the earth approached her and asked if everything was all right. In calmed down, rose to her feet and offered to summon the next spirit. But suddenly, she ran somewhere. She peeked around the corner and waited for the guard to walk past them before moving on. The spirits asked with interest where she went. In ran to the stable. She ran to some boxes and stole a torch. She needed fire, but In couldn't use her magic, because otherwise, there would be an explosion. Holding a lit torch in her hands, she began to summon the ruler of fire. Suddenly, the fire of the torch began to get bigger and bigger. In got scared, throwing it out of her hands. Before her, she saw the spirit of fire. He appeared before her in the form of a fiery bird. The spirit also asked if she had called him. In replied that she would like to sign a contract with him. In cheek. The contract was signed. The spirit of the wind admired her, In called upon all the higher spirits. The spirit of the earth spoke about the fact that it is difficult for a person to conclude a contract with the spirits of more than 4 different elements, even if they are of low ranks. It was amazing. In explained that she is not like everyone else. There is no one like her anymore, In is special. The spirits were confused. She had to call only the spirit of water, In was wondering what he would look like. She went to the horse trough filled with water and decided that this amount of water would be enough. In began to summon the ruler of water. She began to peer into the water. Seeing there a reflection of herself and the spirits around her, it seemed that she was the very ruler of the water. But nothing happened. In thought that summoning the water spirit would go smoothly. The earth spirit asked who she was trying to summon. He explained that if once In had already entered into a contract, she could summon the spirit without a spell. But she didn't have a contract with the water spirit. In thought that a high-ranking spirit would appear. She couldn't believe no one had even shown up. The spirits she summoned said they could feel the Spirit King's aura around her. They were all perplexed. If In already had a contract, did that mean she could order her father around? Thinking about this, In started laughing evilly. The rest of the spirits thought she was crazy. She looked at the spirits and said that she was done with the contracts and they could already be returning. But they didn't want to go back, because the spirit world was very boring, and they asked In to let them stay at least for a little while. All she had to do was let them know if In needed help and they would show up immediately. As they chatted, something strange began to happen to the water. Unexpectedly for everyone, her father appeared. He said that In looked like she was having a lot of fun. Hearing his voice, In trembled. The spirits were surprised to see him. In couldn't believe her ears. Elaine asked her what was the reason for his calling In a fugitive. Milo, calling his daughter an idiot, he said that he turned a blind eye to her antics. Those words pierced her. But Elaine continued to lecture her. The father accused the daughter of carelessness. In was so preoccupied with herself that she was almost sold into slavery, not to mention that In became the servant of some imbecile. He asked her if she liked this life away from him. The daughter was furious. Since he knew everything, why didn't he come and help her? And how did he even know all this? But while In was in this world, she was always under his supervision. Elaine could be anywhere, wherever there is water. For a moment he was silent and grinned. In looked at him silently. And there is no place in the world without water. Approaching, her father told her. In was scared. She looked at the spirits she called and asked not to stand, but to help her. But they just turned away. Her father was waiting for her explanation when In returned. But instead, she herself summoned him. What were the reasons? And In confusedly tried to answer him. She decided to ask right here and now, no matter what happened. And she invited her father to conclude a contract. The spirits watched them intently as an awkward silence fell between father and daughter. In thought that her father would agree to the contract. At this time, Dad began to conjure something. It came as a surprise to her. In thought he agreed. Of course, she would not have been very happy with a kiss, but she was ready to endure this moment so that after that she could order him. But instead of a contract, a large jet of water flew into her. Let's get started, her father told her. But In managed to dodge. She yelled at Elaine saying that he scared her. Elaine was impressed. Apparently stick training was not a waste of time. After that, he continued to attack. Once again, In managed to dodge. They haven't seen each other for so long and the first thing he wanted to do was kill his only daughter. But her father watched her every day. She had not seen him for a long time. And once again he corrected her that she was a son, not a daughter. On what In demanded to stop calling her his son. But Elaine was adamant. She was a son to him because he said so while continuing his attacks. Of course, In knew that sometimes she was mistaken for a guy, but still she was a girl. The father continued to attack, she dodging. And attacked again, and again In dodged. He went on and on without stopping, she still dodged. Seeing such a reaction, the spirits clapped. But In she asked me to stop doing this and help her. Distracted, she did not notice her father's next attack and was unable to dodge. In flew off several meters, fell to the ground and rolled over several times. Of course, Elaine understood that she just wanted to get revenge on him with a contract. But the Spirit King could not be controlled. The spirits only answered her requests. Hey, and I didn't understand why it was necessary to beat her then. Elaine explained that she herself started this when she ran away from home, and also decided to take revenge on him. She asked to be kinder to her and try to understand her, because he is still much older than Hey-in. At that moment, Elaine noticed someone. Were they making too much noise? Approaching from the back, someone grabbed Hey-in hand. It was one of the guards, followed by Mr. Stewart and other warriors. How dare she? He warned her about the magic circle, but what did she do? She was lucky that she was not injured, although she could have been badly hurt. After all, he warned her that there were people who died during the call, but Hey-in went for it anyway. The teacher pointed to the mess she had made there and asked where her book was. But she couldn't answer. Hey-in looked at the 4 spirits. Didn't he see them? Spirits of higher ranks can control their presence, it was they who decided whether people see them or not. This is how Elaine explained it. The teacher didn't like that Hey-in ignored him. He grabbed her by the collar and began to drag her somewhere. Stewart was full of anger and warned her that if she ever dared to use advanced magic without his supervision one more time, she would never get away with it. He continued to drag her from the scene, and at this time the spirits followed her on the heels. Hey-in she didn't understand why her father was following her now, because before he always left her alone. They followed her all the way to the room. Hey-in sat on the bed and listened to the spirits talking about something. Noticing how Hey-in watching, her father said that she looked dumb and it was time for her to sleep. But Hey-in was too curious to go to sleep. Why was she so interested? She had contracts with all the higher spirits. Fire, earth, air, and only water remained. Hey-in I really wanted to see the higher spirit of water. Elaine did not understand why she needed the spirit, because he was here. She said unhappily that her father made Darren watch her all day. Why couldn't a high-ranking spirit do the same? Elaine breathed, snapping his fingers began to invoke the spirit. Before Hey-in the supreme spirit of water appeared in the form of a dragon. The spirit's name was Elestra and Elaine was about to send it back. The daughter stopped him and asked him to wait. Hey-in stated that she wanted to sign a contract with him. The rest of the spirits stood in perplexity. The Supreme Water Spirit replied that she had the Spirit King's energy flowing through her and she didn't need a contract with him. She was surprised that the Spirit King was really so great. Father noticed that it would be possible to say this more often. Hey-in was about to go to bed, saying that why not just accept the compliment. And when will he leave? She was cool to spend time with the rest of the higher spirits, because they did not know the human world, unlike her father. Elaine went to the bed, poked her head into the pillow and told her to just go to bed. Hey-in it seemed that for the King of Spirits, he was too stiff. He needed to be looser. The father didn't like that saying very much, he was going to slap her with his jet of water. Noticing this, Hey-in immediately covered herself with a blanket and wished everyone a good night. The next morning, as usual, began with a workout. Hey-in practiced her sword move while Danny watched her. Danny reprimanded her about exercise. She noticed that he hadn't looked well lately. The workouts were getting too intense lately, and he should have thought about her pace. Danny took out his practice sword and began to show Hey-in movements, swinging it in all directions. She needed a strong base, just so she would soon be able to control her sword. Previously, they often joked and had fun during training. Hey-in missed this a little. Danny heard that she recently started studying magic. But Hey-in didn't want to talk about it and pretended to train hard. Danny approached her and told her to focus on one goal. He took her by the hands with which she held the sword. He ordered to start over. Hey-in didn't understand why she had butterflies in her stomach after his touch. After training, she began to perform her usual duties. In still couldn't finish cleaning. Behind her stood her father. Did she really enjoy serving people all day long? He asked. But she did what she had to do. In should have just told her father if she wanted to go home. He could take her back in the blink of an eye. The rest of the spirits, hearing about this, began to wonder what Miss In's house looked like. She didn't understand why all of a sudden the spirits started calling her Mississippi. The spirits had no reason to respect people, but this is a completely different case, because is the daughter of the King of Spirits. She liked this attitude, and she began to get used to it. The spirits reminded In to go to a magic class. She knew about it and asked her not to rush. In came to her teacher's office and knocked on the door. She arrived very on time. Looks like the teacher had something to say to her. She had been making progress lately and he was delighted. Stuart will start teaching her more advanced things. The wind spirit Celestine was happy about this, but in herself seemed to have a different opinion. Elaine felt that she should have been ashamed, as she studied under a mage whose rank was much lower than that of her mother. The teacher wanted In to increase the time for practicing magic. Since she had other things to do in this house, she should have retired from morning training and practice magic more. In was amazed, because it was Sir Joel's order. But she didn't really like training, so In wasn't exactly upset. Stuart took off and ran to ask his permission. In was clearly surprised by the teacher's reaction. Stuart came to Sir Joel's office and explained the situation to him. In practiced diligently to control mana and showed good results. For this reason, he wanted to increase the duration of magic practice at this crucial moment. That would be better for her. In covered her face with her hands, not understanding what she was getting into and why the teacher was so quick in her actions. According to her father, she looked very pathetic. Elaine thought he should have just dragged her back home. But In still didn't want to come back. She knew that this was forced on her, but she still wanted to develop her skills in sword fighting and magic, imagining herself as a very cliched magic knight. In smiled, thinking that where there is a stick, there is also a carrot. Danny looked at her at that moment. He looked at her thoughtfully. In realized that he noticed her smile and hoped he didn't misunderstand her. She wasn't smiling just because she would have to continue her magic practice. Danny turned to Sir Joel. He said that In also wanted this and asked that Mr. Stuart's request be considered. Joel considered. He asked for forgiveness, saying that he would like his servants to have good physical fitness. Smiling, Joel looked at In. And I wanted to hear her opinion. She was a little worried. Danny hoped that In would not choose sorcery and continue training. And Stuart hoped she wanted to study magic. Apparently In didn't expect anyone to ask her opinion. She didn't understand why this was happening to her. Elaine said only to do what she wants. He didn't understand what the problem was. Sighing heavily, In didn't know what had gone wrong. She turned around. Looking at this confrontation Danny and Stuart. She had a bad feeling, but what other options were there? The father insisted that In do as she sees fit. He decided to speed her up a little by saying that since she enjoyed the company of people to her will, maybe it's time to go home? It worked. Both classes were close to her. Previously, she managed to combine them, and she wanted to leave everything as it is. It seems the teacher has now understood her position between Sir Joel and Danny. He agreed, although he considered it a disgrace. To In, it sounded like Joel and Danny somehow influenced her decision about the future. She looked at them. In seemed like they looked unhappy. Elaine suggested that she take care of that guy, alluding to Danny. But In refused. The next morning, during training, Danny asked if she wanted to continue. Of course she did, because In has never said that she doesn't like swords. But she also never said otherwise. Now that Danny started thinking about it, he realized that In never asked to train. These were all orders from Sir Joel. The wind spirit peeked out from behind her, asking if that was the case. Celestine knew that she hated training and just wanted to sleep. And it wasn't too late to leave. But In didn't want to leave, as there was so much to learn here. It seemed to the spirit that In was just someone who was not indifferent. After all, there is something that people call the code of honor. Are you following him too? Celestine asked. Hearing this, the rest of the spirits, including her father, stared at In. But she wasn't about to tell anyone because she was too embarrassed to say that. In seemed like being a summoner was just as cool as being a swordsman. Once again, In got distracted and again drooped in her fantasies. Danny called her. He was dissatisfied with the fact that she again hovered in the clouds. But In only made excuses. If he really wanted to concentrate on magic, as Stuart said, then Danny could let In skip his morning practice. But she tried to calm him down. She wanted to study magic, but In never thought about becoming a magician. She said she was studying magic purely out of curiosity. The spirits began to whisper something behind her back. Wind Spirit decided to bet that In only studies magic because she thinks it's cool to use magic and summoning. She was embarrassed at these words. In fact, she heard everything. Danny was not happy that In was talking about magic with such zeal. You didn't have to look at him like that every time he said it. In made excuses again. All this picture reminded her father of a circus. In just meant that she didn't want to focus only on magic. She wanted to learn how to skillfully wield a sword, too. Danny pointed out that she also wasn't going to put all her effort into developing her skills to become a swordsman or a knight. He grabbed her by the neck in a friendly way and hugged her, saying that he knew that In was a lazy slacker and with such an approach she would definitely not achieve anything. Danny promised to make a new person out of her and she better not be distracted. From today they will start special training. In didn't like it anymore. Joel crept up behind and wished her good luck, as there was a lot of work ahead of her. In wondered where he came from. And Danny dragged her in an unknown direction. From a distance, she only screamed that she was quite pleased with what was happening now. In asked Joel to stop Danny. A few hours later, In was standing in the middle of the corridor, barely able to stand. But she still has a lesson in magic ahead of her. By the way, no one stopped Danny. Her father gloated as usual, asking if she was homesick. But In told him to back off, stomping his feet on the floor in annoyance. Such childish behavior. She did not look like her mother at all, and her father did not understand who she was. But if not in the mother, then who can it be? They made eye contact and the spirits began to watch them. What will happen now? But In simply asked her father to be quiet if he was going to stay. After all, she was very tired. She just knocked on the door. How the teacher immediately opened it, saying that it was just in time. It seemed to her that Stuart was leaving somewhere, and she can finally pretend that she was reading and take a little nap. In was about to go read something. Master said that advanced magic can only be used in real battles. From now on, she had to be ready for his lessons on the training field. Then he could not increase the time of the lesson, so he will be as strict as possible now. The joy on In's face disappeared somewhere. Together they went to the training field. And the teacher was going to show her something. In had to be able to create at least 2 or more elements at the same time. At that moment, a fireball formed in one of his hands, and a wind whirlwind in the other. Stuart put them together in place. It turned out to be an incredibly powerful spell. A large pillar of fire rushed past her, hitting the target. Despite the power of the spell, there was no explosion, as well as serious destruction. They couldn't afford the explosion like last time, so they had to start small. In tried to concentrate and cast a spell of low power. Suddenly a thought came into her mind. She could have put more power into the spell. The main thing is that it does not explode. In began to transmit some kind of signal. This signal passed through the head and other spirits. She ordered the Celestin to bring the wind to her hands. The spirit complied with her request. Selena gave her fire. And in her hands, a fiery wind whirlwind began to form. After showing her spell to the teacher, she asked his opinion. He was right, she had a talent for magic. Why shouldn't she quit the rest of her classes? But In didn't listen to him because she admired herself. The very modesty. In would have done it much sooner if she had known. Magic has become much easier than before. She looked forward to further cooperation with the spirits. They promised to help next time. It seemed that just yesterday she did nothing but blow everything up, but now she is already capable of creating complex spells. They had to keep going. In was in complete agreement with Stuart. She had 3 higher spirits behind her. What could go wrong? It looks like something has gone wrong. In was forced to do math. She didn't understand why magic needed mathematics at all. Even when In was in school, it was hard for her to figure out where to use it. She hoped that she would never have to worry about this nonsense again. The wind spirit told her that compound spells were more than just combining elements. To create and compile the perfect combination, you need to know their optimal ratio, and this comes from mathematics. Her teacher told her about it. It seemed that living in another dimension would be much cooler than all this. She wanted to be a high school student again and go to high school. Maybe you should tell him that she is a great summoner. But if In does that, her life will never be the same again. What if you tell Stuart that she has already signed a contract with the spirits? But this could lead to big problems in the future. People could see how unique In is. She didn't understand why she had to be special. It sucks to be cool. Her father noticed that her brain had gone about its business again. Apparently she just had to study. In really wanted something interesting to happen. She wanted to be free from this tedious cramming, if only for a few days. Several days have passed. Joel was sitting in his office looking at a sheet of paper. She and Danny discussed the news about the hunting trip. The event is called the Westmoreland Marquee. They were going to go there. In stood aside and listened to their conversation. She didn't quite understand what that meant. Joel confidently decided to attend this event, because he had not seen everyone for a long time. Whatever it was, In wanted to be taken along as well. Joel hasn't seen his friends for a long time. It's been about half a year already. In did not understand what they were talking about, but decided to remind herself. Joel took notice of her. He invited In to go with them. She was happy. And Danny, on the contrary, was alarmed. Danny got up from the couch, slamming his hands on the table. In was not ready yet and didn't know how to handle weapons at all, it was too dangerous and he didn't want to allow it. What kind of hunting must it be to be so dangerous? Joel was sure everything would be fine if they introduced Mr. Stuart to her. It seemed to mean that she was on her way. Danny thought about this option. Well, as long as In is next to the teacher and doesn't follow them everywhere, everything should be fine. It was not a bad opportunity for her to see how the sword is used in real-life situations. In was beaming with joy. Joel was glad that Danny supported his decision. In addition, In will be able to see how the sword and magic are used in life. Danny agreed. Perhaps this trip will be useful to her. But In did not understand why they took mages with them to hunt, because her teacher is too strong for this. And then she realized that she would have to remain in the rear all the time. In didn't ask you to worry about her like that. Care made them softer. Whatever it was, it sounded fun to the spirits. In warned them to be quiet until she spoke, promising to leave them here if they disobey. Joel advised them to prepare well, as they would be traveling in a carriage for several days. This should have been a good experience for In. She was full of joy, because she was going on a trip. In the evening In packed her things, singing about how there will be no training and magic lessons. Her father again affectionately called her an idiot, insulting her singing. As always, in your repertoire. But it was her first vacation, so it couldn't ruin In's mood. Actually, it's just a short break, but vacation sounds better. Putting things together, she drew attention to the book that lay on the bed. Taking a closer look at it, In didn't quite understand why Joel told her to read it. She didn't want to be lethargic tomorrow, so she put the book down and decided to go to bed. In will read it when he returns. She began to fall asleep. But this book is an encyclopedia of monsters. In was surprised to admire the beautiful scenery from the window of the carriage. It was just what she needed. Of course, it would be better to plan something yourself, but that's also cool. She turned around. And I saw that all the spirits were sitting in the carriage. Is her father following her again, and the rest, too? He was here to look after her. Who knows what kind of trouble she'll get into? And the spirits were there just to help her. They thought that this trip would be very interesting. Isn't it better to spend this time with them than alone? In asked the wind spirit to get off Danny because she looked ridiculous. However, they could be useful, besides, no one saw them. In agreed, but asked her not to do anything until she said so. And she ordered them to sit on the floor, otherwise it looked strange. Not that it mattered. It was a special journey with spirits that only she had seen. In considered it the best trip ever. The teacher noticed that she looked excited. Chuckled, and replied that she couldn't do anything about it. Was it in anticipation of the hunt or because of the journey? Interested in Stuart. More likely because of the journey, because it was the first time she left the mansion. In really liked hunting, as it's just killing animals. She didn't understand why people liked it so much. All three of them looked at her in surprise. Animals? What is she all about? In wondered if they weren't going to hunt animals. Joel realized that she never read his book. In thought it was before her training and was going to read it when they got back. Danny decided to explain everything to her now. The teacher tried to explain, if it was just a trip to hunt ordinary animals, then did she really think that only the best knights and the great mage of the manor would go? She guessed that this was too much even for aristocrats. This explained everything. But then who will they hunt? Danny explained what to the monsters. So that's why he gave her this book. Why didn't he tell her it was for travel? In asked the spirits what kind of monsters they were, describing zombie ghosts and various others to them. But they were completely different monsters. But what? She thought. The teacher and her old man looked at her at the same time. Don't tell me he doesn't know what monsters look like. The teacher spoke. Do you even know what monsters are? Asked by Elaine. But In really didn't know. Danny thought she was joking. After all, she must have heard different stories about trolls, orcs and others. In justified her ignorance by the fact that she lived in a very, very remote place and did not know much yet. Danny guessed that if she lived in the woods, she would definitely see at least one or two as she grew up. Turning to the old man, In agreed with Danny's opinion. Too bad there were no monsters in the ocean. Apparently they all ran away when they found out that a mean old fart lives next to them. Of course they weren't, because Elaine put up a barrier to protect her. The prank failed. But he could tell her about them, couldn't he? Elaine did not have time, because she fled before he could do it. Stuart decided that her parents didn't tell her anything. Joel was sure In had their reasons. They might give her some information for their own safety, Joel decided. In started arguing with her father again. He could tell her at least something in advance, blaming him. Elaine called her strange since In didn't know anything about monsters. But they weren't where she came from. In realized that two people can play this game and started asking her father if he knows what movies, game consoles and television are. Elaine was furious. Again they are on their own. The spirits commented, watching from the sidelines. The teacher started to say In. He asked her how animals react when they see a person. In replied that they were running away. That's right, but the monsters were different from them. If you see a creature that does not run away from people, but rather attacks them, then most likely this is a monster. The smarter ones can talk to people or use magic. Others act instinctively, and some are physically similar to humans. There are many different monsters in the world. In asked about the demi-humans. Stuart thought for a moment. He explained that they only mistake them for monsters if they attack to kill or eat people. She seems to understand everything now. Danny explained that this is a dangerous hunt and In may even die. Did she really think it would be a picnic? Danny joked. She was wondering if it's so dangerous, then why is Sir Joel coming off? This trip was a tradition for Sir Joel and his friends, even before they left school. Every year, at this time, one of them arranges a trip. Monsters become especially dangerous during the period of early summer until late autumn. Although it is considered just a game for the nobles, hunting is also beneficial for people. Danny seems to have realized that this is the reason they created hunting trips. Perhaps it was. Joel was wondering whose team would win this time. Danny asked if he could hit him as his friend. But Joel refused as his lord. Will he win? This clearly interested In. She thought there would be a prize for the winner. Again In began to dream. She was sure that she would definitely win with her skills. Full of confidence, In decided to show everyone what she can do. Who knows, maybe she can help Sir Joel a little too. After all, she has a couple of her skills in her arsenal and In knew how to wield a sword and use magic. In was asking if the team with the most kills would win. But everything was not so simple. There are strong and weak monsters, so there is a scoring system based on the Book of Monsters. For a weak monster, they give 1 point, for a strong one, 2 points. Thus, they give points to each monster, and at the end of the game they count their total number. So, did the team with the most points win? In asked. Joel praised her, saying that she was a fast learner. As usual, In was a little overconfident. It was evening and she fell asleep. Danny woke her up, they had already arrived. In looked out of the carriage window and was pleasantly surprised. She saw thick and beaten walls in front of her. This place was very different from the capital. The invasion and attack of monsters is already commonplace here, which is why the walls are so thick. Pa CC showed Joel. Mark from Westmoreland resides in the east of Belleny. Although this is a mountainous area, but it is calm and there is a lot of food. A big plus is the warm climate, which attracts a large number of animals. This explained why the monsters preferred this territory. Surprised, In asked the spirits if they knew about it. But the spirit of the earth explained that they were not particularly familiar with what was happening in this world. And she asked this question to her father. She was sure that he had seen them quite a few times if he put up a barrier. And she was absolutely right. Now In really wanted to see the monster. Of course, they may seem creepy, but she would like to fight at least one. Elaine distracted her from her fantasies. He said that with her skills, staying alive would be top luck. In should have listened to what was being said to her. She actually practiced it hard. In was sure she could. Stuart warned her not to be a fool and not to do anything rash. In was here to watch and learn, and of course to experience what it's like to live in the real world. Joel advised her to listen to the teacher. After all, she was still a rookie. But they just didn't know about her power yet, but unfortunately, In couldn't just take it and show them everything right now. The father asked since when did the powers of the spirits become her powers. She signed a contract with them. Their powers are her powers. Did she think she deserved it? The old man was a little angry. He insisted that it was all thanks to him because he was her son. But that was a lie, because she was his daughter. They were already about to fight. In said that she didn't need his powers and that he didn't stand in her way. Let's get ready to be surprised. The carriage stopped. In opened the door and Sir Joel stepped out. As soon as he was leaving, someone called him. A guy ran up to him and lightly hit him. On the other side, another person approached him and put a hand on his shoulder. These were his friends. It was difficult for them to contact him. Why did they have to throw a hunting party every time just to see his face? How shameful he is. But Joel just asked him to let go. In watched the three in surprise. She approached Danny and said she didn't know that side of Sir Joel. These two were his closest friends. Tall, with blonde hair, this is Sir Beaulieu. He is the Lord of Westmoreland and the master of this city. Danny advised her to remember it. In was surprised. Danny really knew everything. Danny continued his story. This is nothing, but when he thinks about Sir Joel's friends before he comes of age, then everything is much more interesting there. But he decided to tell this story later. Danny told In to take a break after taking Joel's stuff, since he'll probably be hanging out with his friends late. Soon In finished. Now she had to unpack her bags. Standing on the stairs, she drew attention to some bustle below. What could have happened at such a late hour? The servants, together with the master of the manor, greeted a certain venerable Miss Ginevra. They were not ready for her visit, because they did not know her arrival. She called this estate the same dull place as many years ago. So why was she here? The owner asked. Ginevra replied that she was clearly not here to see him. She came to see Stefan. He was sarcastically surprised by such amazing nobility. Ginevra came to such a sad place to see her beloved Stefan. He should have told Stefan about her sincerity and devotion. Ginevra asked me to take her to her room. It was quite a long way and she did not have the strength to exchange pleasantries. But Beaulieu, without much desire, kept up a conversation with an uninvited guest. He ordered the servants to take her to a room. The servants warned that although the room is not in the best shape right now, they hoped that Ginevra would be satisfied. She promised that everything would be all right. After all, she is already so familiar with how inferior this place really is. In took her for a very important person and was glad that she didn't have to deal with her. Suddenly, this lady turned to her. She ran her fan over her shoulder. Asking if he is deaf.